All right, we're live 12/26/2025, and I just finished watching Heads of State, which is a comedy apparently. It took me 3 tries, about 3 days to get through it, but finally I got through it. I mean, it's not a serious movie, but the reason why I watched it is that it's pertinent to our research. And it does happen to have this nefarious character, Vice President Elizabeth Kirk, who is behind the attempted assassination in order to get a presidency. So you have this usurper conspiracist named Kirk, and it's very on brand for the way that she's being presented right now in the psyop soap operas, which is what it's come down to. I've really been noticing how it's just really become about the entertainment value, and a lot of it is just soap opera level stuff. It's very appealing to certain demographics, which is important to consider when you think about the purpose of these various psyops. Who are the target audiences? But that has been a recurring theme here: the villainous Kirk. And so it's fascinating here that in this particular movie, Heads of State, she happens to be, behind this massive betrayal of the very naive president, who's very Charlie Kirkish in that sense, like almost patriotic to a cartoonish sense. And she does happen to get shot in the neck, just like Kirk did. The significance here is that the actress is the one who's the femme fatale blonde woman next to Charlie Kirkland who gets shot in the neck in Snake Eyes. So there's a continuity here in the predictive to concurrent programming that we've noted with themes, names, but even down to the particulars and a reoccurring actress in a corresponding role that telegraphed in advance the kind of personality that we should have expected from Erica Kirk. And this just underscores what we've been saying about scripted events and the associated characters, how, for all intents and purposes, you can consider it reality TV, if not just outright soap opera, which is how we've been describing it lately. But I watched it, and yes, VP Erica Kirk behind a usurping of the power over the by covert means, assassination, etc. And same actress. So that's pretty much it. I think there's something else too at the end, actually. So Bill Hader plays this character who convincingly fake dies, and it ends with him on some island just describing to all the ladies how he managed to survive getting shot in the whatever. But it was like almost as though that scene would kind of give you an idea of where Charlie is. It almost seemed like one of these reveals. But anyway, a lot of people apparently told me they couldn't finish the movie. I'm not going to be I'm not going to give any spoilers, and I'm not a judge. I'm just checking out the propaganda. I'm not trying to be entertained by it. I have such low expectations anyway, so I'm not even bothered by it. It's intriguing though. So much of it actually looks like AI in green screen and just or LED screen. It's just to me it looks faker and faker all the time. And there was that guy Douglas Trumbull, the special effects for 2001: Space Odyssey, who talked about how the special effects using scale models age better over the decades than the CGI stuff, which has a very short shelf life before it's eclipsed by something better, which makes it look bad by comparison. That's why I'm somewhat disappointed that Tom Cruise canceled his movie in space, because I wanted to know how they were going to play this off, where you produce a IMAX quality movie in space and then you compare it to what we see from the ISS and the way he moves, the way his hair moves in the movie versus the ISS. And that would put the comparison so close, the public might say, hey, wait a minute. Why does space look so fake when it comes from NASA? Like, I don't think they wanted that comparison, and so they probably terminated the mission. I don't know. Hopefully, I think he should still go up. It could be theater anyway. They're saying he didn't go because he doesn't want to have to beg Donald Trump. What's up, Blozik? Blap that kneecap, John Francis. So again, slow psyop week. I mean, I've been paying attention. A lot of it's drama between these various characters, which is good for them for business. Like Alex Jones and Laura Loomer aligning against Candace Owens. All about this various theories, but it's grifters versus grifters. Like none of them are innocent in this thing. They're all complicit. You think they don't all know the truth that Charlie Kirk's on some island somewhere getting probably a nose job and teeth and who knows what else, but I don't know. Some people consider that maybe he was incrementally donning a mask of some kind and kind of morphing himself to throw us off when he morphs back into whatever he's going to be. It's kind of akin to witness protection, crisis actor island, wherever that is. The reason why there's speculation that it's in New Zealand is because Tyler Robinson happened to pose in front of a map that had a place called Valhalla in New Zealand. And then you had Cash Patel saying, see you in Valhalla. And by the way, the name Tyler is really strange in this whole context. He gets shot by Tyler. Erica Kirk's newly unveiled boyfriend's name, Tyler. Producer who was embezzling, another backstabber, Tyler. Gets shot by Tyler. Erica's video, thank you, Tyler, for the great video shoot. So there's at least 5 or 6 Tylers that stab him in the back, betray him, or kill him. Like, that's kind of odd. So we'll get more into that. What's up, Nicotrauma says it's all about the dollars they steal from us. Well, yeah, I guess so. I mean, we do kind of pay for it all in a sense. Just trying to figure out what it is, though. To me, it's not a whodunit, it's a what is it. And I think that the biggest leap forward for the IPS think tank has been the confrontation of this question as to how long in advance are certain events planned, and then considering the implications, because on many of these things, there are indications we're looking at decades. And that has significant ramifications for how rigged the wider system is, which leads me to be very dismissive about the idea of voting, which is why I say take the anti position. I've said this for some time. Like, if it's rigged on both sides, maybe you should opt out. Like that Ferris Bueller movie. What is it called? War Games? Strange game. The only winning move is not to play. And that's kind of where I'm at. I have become very detached. And I know that I am because I took a 10-day media fast. And at no point did I have a compulsion to check any notifications. Like, I was literally like not giving an F, just not even thinking about it. Didn't even cross my mind. And I'm just saying that I'm not really attached to the media cycles, because if something big happened, and I knew there would be some psyops, I figured, yeah, I can just catch up on it after a few days, which is plenty of time for the false leads, the bait, the misinformation, the bad takes to be sussed out. So I would show up when we have a wider array of information, because when all you have is a headline, there's really technically not enough information to know it's true or to call it a hoax. I think you've got to give it some time. I don't have a set rule. I mean, some people have, 3 days makes sense. So I just figured 10 days wouldn't be a big deal. And then I come back to the Rob Reiner thing, Brown University and Bondi Beach, and that the bloody cheesecloth guy who, hilariously has been reposting stuff on X. Like he went back to the scene and he cried on camera. I mean, the theatrics with that one is a huge hoax indicator. But the fact that he's a repeat victim, he was at another similar event, that one on 10/7. And then Brown University had 2 repeat victims, which is like 1 in 3 billion chance that you're going to survive not 1, but 2 school shootings. Nicotrauma says, for sure, the Trump character has been planned since at least the 50s. Yeah, I would suggest 1958 Trackdown really sets out the template, even with the arrest. And that has been commented on widely, even by mainstream sources like CNN. The Barron Trump thing, I'm very skeptical. I still don't know if they backdated it. I'm still very skeptical about it. Work my art. My art's on eBay if you want anything. I've been doing nothing but charcoal. Actually, tonight I've been doing magic markers and I've been doing penguins. But for the most part, I've been doing charcoal, 2 or 3 a day. And I'm doing this for a reason. I think I have a niche that might do better than painting. It takes less time, less money, and I found the right fixative. It's not the usual workable fixative. This is a fine art fixative that does in fact seal the charcoal in, so there's no smearing, which was always a problem, but no longer. So yes, nothing but charcoal. I use black and white. And usually if I'm out somewhere doing that, I will live stream at the same time. Today I was doing a still life of a trunk of a tree that was kind of mangled and it looked like a hand. But anyway, go to timosmond.art if you want to get the links. It's a Substack newsletter. I need to update it. But yes, charcoal with pencil, not the sticks. I use pencil because you can get really good detail. I've been doing even font, but I'm going to continue to work in this medium for a while. I think I have a way to get into a certain profitability bracket on eBay. Whereas with paintings, I tend to lose money. But I've noticed for years, people who are really good with pencil tend to outdo those who are good painters. All right, so we're talking about the horrible movie. And yeah, I can objectively say it was bad. It took me, like I told someone in Discord, I was like, I feel a little dumber. But it had to be done. And again, this is all just fascinating because you have this repeated theme of the Jezebel, the widow who's actually a backstabber, who's Machiavellian, a villainess. And if you look at the way that Kirk is being characterized by her opposition, it's exactly that. And it's all, of course, by design. And I call this the Erica Kirk conundrum because if there's anybody out there still stuck on, oh, these things in entertainment are just coincidentally matching up with the fake stuff. If you're still stuck on it's coincidental, you would have to explain how Erica Kirk's character has followed the Tempest and Heads of State, and to a large degree Snake Eyes, since, well, 9/22. And there are so many things with such specificity that the only logical conclusion is you're looking at a psyop actor who was actually along a scripted role, and part of this script has been fed into these various time released. These things were released concurrently. Mass entertainment events like the Tempest show. And by the way, someone pointed out that the guy in the Tempest who's based on Charlie Kirk who gets shot in the neck, that his birthday happens to be Donald Trump's birthday, which is something to put on a mind map, I'm sure. But anyway, yes, I took one for the team. I watched that movie. Another thing that's kind of showing up too is the fact that she has so many exes. One of them named Tyler, and it contradicts her own backstory, which now seems manufactured. But the other one that's significant is this guy who has pizza tattooed on the back of his neck, and now he's a speaker at TPUSA. But I've been intrigued by this relationship between that general working for TPUSA and his role in the publication of Mind Wars by the Temple of Set high priest Michael Aquinos. So I've been looking at that thinking that's kind of strange. Satan and psyops all in the mix at the top of the whole Turning Point USA thing. Which, if you read about, the basic idea in Mind Wars, it actually makes perfect sense, because what that booklet is about is the replacement of real events, like uncontrolled organic events, with simulations, where we're still living through the same struggles, we're still experiencing the same things, but nothing's getting broken, nobody's dying, nobody's crying for real. And that's what I think we might be looking at. And my question again is, like, how far back? And was this a gradual shift? Like, or is Mind Wars, for example, this publication came out in 1980. But I would suggest that if this is what we're looking at, it was implemented long before then, which just raises some questions about that. But anyway, just another one of these interesting details. And it gives the whole MAGA cult this very, like, devil's advocate, Rosemary's Baby kind of vibe. All right, let's see here. Oh, by the way, Jack Posobiec has this tweet where he said, QAnon was started by two guys that are friends of mine. Wouldn't that make sense? And I only bring this up because the truth needs to get out. Somebody needs to ask, shouldn't they reveal the name of the person who inspired Jake, what's his name, Chansley, to put on that roadkill outfit, grab a spear, and run into the Capitol? Like he said, Q sent me. Like, shouldn't we want to know who Q is, since all these people went to jail over it? But apparently nobody cares. It's weird. It's like there's a media blackout on it. And maybe it's because the truth is really disappointing. Because the truth is, the Q psyop is simply that. And it was run out of the White House. And the people involved with it are like Jack Posobiec level types. I was thinking about this earlier, in fact. Garrett Ziegler lost his White House press pass for organizing some kind of pre-January 6th meeting in the White House. He lost his credentials over that. And he happens to be the BFFs of the person that I contend is actually Q. Probably not a coincidence. All right, let's see here. Let's go ahead and continue scrolling up Discord. Yeah, Synchromorpheus found something good here. This is a friend said, I knew Reiner's monster son, Nick. Friend reveals his grunting and signs that everyone missed at the age of 11. And others have noted the Frankenstein-like appearance of the guy. But again, monster. We've been talking about the Dr. Frankenstein's monster and its overlap with this particular event. And there's just more building on to it. It's kind of intriguing. When we have a little more, I'll put up a blog to connect it all if you haven't followed this story. And it even brings the Obamas into it. Apparently, they were scheduled to go over there on that night. Or so they say, but that's actually been reported. So I want to bring that out as well. All right, let's go ahead. I've been watching this Fallout from America Fest. And yeah, Erica Kirk has been deliberately villainized. This is so intentional. Here we go. Nick Reiner has Sanpaku eyes. In traditional facial reading, Sanpaku eyes are a belief in the white of the eye, visible above or below, is associated with physical or emotional imbalances. So people have noted the eyes. I would call that just the Kubrick stare. Jamarian May says Q is Thoth, the master manipulator. Yeah, he's the Egyptian counterpart to, I guess, the Roman Mercury and the Greek Hermes. And they're all tricksters. And that's kind of an interesting concept as well, this trickster thing. How prevalent it is. What's up, ears up? I was looking at this like kind of overlapping between the themes of crossroads spirits in different traditions that are all associated with being tricksters, like the jinn. I had this really weird book on jinn summoning, and it was written by someone who, um, I don't know. I mean, it was like one of those self-published books, but I remember it had this whole thing where you go to the crossroads, and you apparently you need certain candles like red and white and black, and you have to like they like the smell of like burning hair to burn some hairs like incense. And apparently though, you have to word what you say carefully because they will twist your words and somehow screw you over. And I'm like, that's interesting because I've heard similar types of things with certain more like African centered myths about their mercurial character, their crossroads deity, where if you don't deliberately word your spell properly, in some way it backfires, which is an interesting concept anyway. The trickster thing. It's kind of a trope. I watched this really good series once. I mean, it's just alarmism. It's just entertainment. It's like they sold their souls for rock and roll, and it's like not even tongue in cheek. It's like serious, like you know, hell, fire and brimstone propaganda. Just bringing up how all these musicians sold their souls. I'm like, I don't know, because a lot of the bands they brought up were kind of lightweight to what we have today, in that regard. I mean, unless our society's really just gone like totally satanic in its aesthetics, which really wouldn't shock me at this point. I remember thinking about the significance of the MAGA hat, how "Make America Great Again" in a way kind of resonates with Babylon the Fallen, written across the brow and the scarlet hat. And I was just pointing out these kind of themes that were emerging where they seem to be borrowing from, vivid biblical imagery, sort of like how Butler, Pennsylvania, in many ways, is the Revelation 13 miracle, the whole thing about the beast and the head wound. I mean, it wasn't all that impressive. I mean, if they had done like squib effects, maybe, but I don't know. I don't think it hit the way they expected it. I think they expected it to hit harder. Jock says, "Did you hear Erica Kirk mention mind viruses?" No, I have not. Interesting. Yeah, well, anyway, the way she emerged on the world stage is completely being ridiculed by people who are comparing her to various, pop stars jumping out on stage with fireworks. I mean, it's his target. She's a target now, and it's funny. I mean, honestly, it's one of the funnier byproducts of this whole psyop. It's just the reaction to Erica Kirk and how hysterical it is. And I'm trying not to retweet too many of those, but they're like normal people when their husband dies, sad emoji, Erica Kirk colon, and then it has like Madonna or some, you know, pop star jumping on stage just to make the point. and it's still funny, and they keep doing it. So Jacques says, it was shortly after you started your break. It was hilarious. Interesting. Well, the nice thing about what we're doing is that it's unco-optable. They cannot co-opt this into alt media because it invalidates every single premise they rest upon, because they operate within this closed informational system just on the right side of the political horseshoe. They're a subset. And what we're basing our observations on is the fundamental aspect of the world stage they ignore, which happens to be simulated events. The why, the how, and what this reveals about the wider system that we're in. I mean, because it looks to me like there's a worldview monopoly, and it's some form of, you could say, almost a religious paradigm, a one world religion. But anyway, it has some unsettling, in some ways, some unsettling implications, but I don't know. Depends. I mean, I can understand the reasoning behind it. If you're thinking it's just about crowd control and the need for a consensus where everybody's playing in the same universe, essentially. Like, I can understand the purpose. Lean Dion said, Erica said all the conspiracies about her and CK were spreading like mind viruses. Interesting. Jamarin May says, it seems like there's some Black Widow symbolism going on with Erica Kirk. Well, again, yeah, exactly. And my point is, this has been engineered. They created this perception on purpose. And it even harkens back to the storm, the Jezebel, and the reference there. But you got Tyler the executioner, Tyler in the music video, Tyler her ex, uh, Tyler the embezzler that worked with Charlie, and then Tyler the shooter. So, like, right there's like 5 Tylers directly associated with this story in antagonistic ways to him, which is kind of interesting. Now, I haven't completed The Widow, but I know that it does involve this whole thing about her being essentially mocked for allegedly faking her grief. And this is before this happened for real, quote unquote. Like, we had essentially predicted it just by talking about what was in that show. And so the next part in the show that I kind of stopped watching on is when the nuclear submarine launches something. And so I'm waiting for that. I mean, not that I'm looking forward to it, but I'm kind of like, I'm ready. It's like, release the Kraken already. I mean, I'm really grateful for what happened on 9/10, as far as how that really added a lot of accelerant to what we're doing. It really did. That event had some significant impacts on what we do, because it was such a perfect example of what we commonly describe as a psyop. But what I'm trying to really expand our description is to encompass it as a simulated historic event, because these are persistence. These are events that persist. There's a persistence in these events. It's not just like a 24-hour news cycle thing. No, it actually goes in the history books, and that means something. Because what is our worldview? But as Napoleon Bonaparte supposedly said, history is lies agreed upon. And we often discuss where news becomes history, but it all results from our collective agreement on something. And so all these things that may not exist are agreed into existence. It's really fascinating to watch it. But what I'm saying here is that there's 2 different timelines. There's the real one, which is boring, and then there's the one that consists of all the fake events that they implement. And when you look at these 2 merging into one, you can see how it occurs, where it's predicted. And then there's an echo chamber of real time releases that coincide with it, including celebrities pushing certain memes. There's just real legitimate echo chamber when the event happens. And then it's followed by tons of reinforcement. And the reinforcement stuff is really what seals it in, which makes it real. Like, it's beyond question now that he's dead. Like, we're so far past that, they've moved on to the next scene. But again, the significant thing here is that some of the indicators would lead us to suggest that events are planned sometimes decades in advance, which suggests there's a level of fakery that has to include the idea that these people are not even really married, for example. And it really highlights the gullibility of the general public. Like, they can laugh at you for being a quote conspiracy theorist, but they're not seeing through these magic tricks. And I understand why, though. It's a point of view thing. And I've been making a big point about point of view, which is very crucial here. Because you can communicate to anyone if you maintain the parameters within their point of view. Once you include things that aren't there, you have that friction. And believers are simply that. They're mostly low information, which means that they're somewhat insecure. They have nothing to really stand on. So there's no point. You don't win any friends over by being cantankerous about trivial things. But I listen to people all the time. I've been told that Trump had him killed even. But I say squib, and it's like, what is that? No way. But that's an inconvenient one. Like, for example, Candace Owen could not blast the squib theory out to her audiences now, because it would contradict her story about how the ghost of Charlie woke her up one night and told her she was betrayed. Well, okay, well then Charlie's ghost couldn't have come to you because he's not dead. So that kind of doesn't work. But even if she went with that, well, then it would immediately bring up the names of the people who were there who were part of the squibbing operation. It's not like he did it himself. Obviously, there'd be a group of people involved in the squibbing. And all the little clues they gave you about the second shooter, third shooter, the secret little palm gun and stuff would obviously have been planted there. Intentional, planted, misleading narratives put there to keep you guessing as to who did it, what angle. Meanwhile, never questioning, did it even happen? So I would say it was a very clever magic trick, in fact. Like, I despite Butler being underwhelming, I do think it was an effective magic trick. The way that he pointed at the sign, and when everyone's looking at the sign, then the shooting happens. And I think that's a good way to, direct everybody away from the thing when it happens. Interesting signal, and it perfectly matched Machete. If you've seen Machete, they were having pretty much an identical speeches. Robert De Niro as Senator McLaughlin. Yeah, he was giving the same speech Trump gave 14 years later. And then he too was shot at the podium. All right, let's see here. Continuing. I'm going through the Discord server. Yeah, I figured it'd be somewhat a slow psyop week. Oh yeah, I was gonna say, the cheesecloth guy goes back. I mean, he's been memed to hell on. He's been memed to Timbuktu. They really got to him on X. So much so that he's, telling people not to do it. It's not nice. That he's a real person. Blah blah blah. And he goes back to the same scene of the event and he cries, like performative. Like he took a selfie of himself after his head wound instead of applying direct pressure. And then he's like going back to the scene and recording himself crying. Like, I'm sorry, that's just what it is. It's crisis acting. But I guess people fall for it. You have sheep I'm sorry. You have low information believers. We have to respect, the fact that most people don't have the time. So this is not like some major insight, by the way. Like, this is something that is just it represents a blind spot most people have. But the nice thing is, with the advent of generative AI, I think more people are starting to understand the necessity for this alternative method to processing and consuming media. The passive, habitual way of consuming media, where it's this inescapable presence. I think people are starting to see the limitations of that. So we're just a little more discriminating about what we're willing to say we believe. There's no reason to be gullible in the information age. You have perplexity.ai, but also we have to recognize that AI is going to all be warped, unfortunately. The point of view of AI will always represent mainstream interests. I mean, I don't imagine there's going to be some kind of rogue entity that just appears out of nowhere and starts creating an alternative style Wikipedia that breaks down history of the last 100 years with an awareness of psychological operations in the mainstream news and their cumulative effects, news bending, history bending since its inception. Like, it would be nice. Like, I know the capacity's there, but that's how you know everything's guardrailed, because they always conform to Normieville. But there's definitely going to be use for it. I mean, I have a lot of applications for AI, perplexity, and otherwise, but specifically for this project. And I think it's worth doing. And as we get it moving, I think people want to get involved. I mean, this is a real conspiracy. It's just that it's successful and no one notices it, but it's a real one. And the rabbit trails are actually kind of interesting when you get into the relationship between entertainment and staged events, and the way that we've entered this hyper reality of fake and real having been merged in the consensus worldview. It's actually, I don't know, I think it's more interesting than regurgitated stories about Epstein. Like, who isn't sick of that by now? Or Candace Owens' latest twist on the Charlie Kirk thing. I'm waiting for her to bring out a Ouija board and just summon Charlie Kirk to speak on the show. Maybe she could do some tarot card readings or something. But anyway. All right, we are joined by Mazel, Unmitigated Mind. All right, let's continue. We're talking about this horrible movie. Sorry, I keep saying horrible movie because somebody said. I'm talking about Heads of State. And no, Heads of State does have a backstabbing, deceitful Vice President E. Kirk, Elizabeth Kirk. And she does, in fact, get behind this attempt to take out the president so she can take over. And she does. Only he's still alive, so he doesn't really die. Spoiler. But you have all those elements again. And then she gets shot in the neck. I mean, come on, what is that? And the main reason this really stood out to us is that she's like the same actress who was next to Charlie Kirkland at the boxing match of Tyler the Executioner, where Kirkland gets shot in the neck. So anyway, same actress, ties into another key aspect in this psyops related entertainment content, like psyop reinforcement content. And for some reason, this has given a lot of truthers. It really gives them like trouble. Like, they have a hard time with this. Like, they're willing to accept the drills that happen at the same time as fake events are indicators of it being a hoax. But the movies and stuff, they see that as, quote, coincidence. But empirical research really does contradict coincidence theory. But even if that was the hill you're going to die on, the entire persona of Erica Kirk since she's emerged on the world stage has so closely aligned with multiple examples of her entertainment counterparts to the point where we're essentially psychically predicting this entire scenario back in September. You'd have to explain that as mere coincidence. And at this point, that would be kind of foolish because we're looking at a soap opera. Planet Coda says reinforcement content is one of my new favorite terms. Right. Well, we don't want to be redundant and we want to really describe exactly what it is and what its purpose is. And one of the more interesting things that we've been putting together recently, which we've always noticed, is that you often have things that are happening elsewhere, like these smaller, less obvious propaganda vectors that still reinforce the big picture. So it shows you how the plan, the script, is widely disseminated. At least key elements are dispersed through every platform, every podcast. Like, and it was very apparent with this CK thing. So it's just next level. So it's not just predictive programming, foreshadowing, it's actually concurrent, but this concerted messaging, which is this echo chamber that it creates. It's really a predictable facet of any one of these psyops, as we often talk about. So we have to really expand our frame of reference to beyond just Netflix. I say that facetiously because it seems like we live on planet Netflix. But that's by all means not the only vector. Mind viruses are coming from everywhere. And mind viruses do exist. But they only exist for those who passively consume media, who essentially are susceptible. They have vulnerabilities in the mental immune system. Perhaps they don't recognize loaded questions or other fallacious contrivances to get people to accept BS. But a lot of people are susceptible to mind viruses. We see it all the time. It's like cult think. Like, we live in 1984. Like, actually, it's worse than that, but in a way, it's clever what they've done because they actually sold it to us. They mass marketed self surveillance, and social media is basically a thought reading machine. And it's all being aggregated. I've been thinking about how they're going to be able to use AI agents to influence, because they already can influence opinions. But if they can't get to you, why wouldn't they want to try to influence the people in your social circle? Like, start nudging their opinions, everybody around you. That's how you would contain a mind virus or a mind virus super spreader, is you would try to influence them perhaps indirectly. And I thought that would be very easy to do because there have been these published studies that suggest that AI agents are 6 times more persuasive than real people. The difference being, of course, is an unlimited number. But yeah, that's what we're up against. Mizelle says, I'd love to do an episode breakdown of different shows like Pluribus. Yeah, actually, I would like to finish watching that one. I'll probably look into it. I'm trying to watch that other one, Begonia, I believe, which is about conspiracy theorists. Then we've got a couple of, this Steven Spielberg trailer is getting a lot of traction. This disclosure thing. And is it interesting how you can believe in aliens all you want and nobody thinks anything of it? Because it's scientific, it's science, bro. But if you believe that a bunch of angels are going to come down, you're looked at as archaic, like backwards. But I've been saying for some time that angels have a new iteration for the new paradigm, and that's what aliens essentially are. It's just a replacement. It's angels that atheists can believe in. but they serve the same function, and they're components to the world stage. And it has to do with this, I guess, innate need for some kind of savior or intercessors. Some divine referees will come in here and solve our problems if things get too bad, or judge our enemies. Yeah, age of disclosure. It seemed to indicate that aliens were some kind of mental thing. I don't know how that works, like, but telepathically or possessing people. I don't know if they were actually physical things. Which reminds me of that Pluribus show. But anyway, that's Steven Spielberg. Spielberg, who's a formidable metascripter, obviously. And this whole alien thing is, to me, it's very played out. But it's not up to me. The psyops that they present to us reflect what the public is willing to believe. And so we're kind of marginal. We don't really have a say in it. And if the majority of people are ready for ET, that's what we're going to get. But there's no way it's neutral, because the aliens will be looked at as demons by Tucker Carlson's army. Like the whole woke right, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens on down, Marjorie Taylor Greene, they've all said that aliens are actually fallen angels or demons. And Tucker has said that these demons work for the Pentagon, and one of them attacked him in his bed. And I've seen similar rhetoric regarding how AI is basically demons. I think Candace Owens said that Peter Thiel and his cyborg buddy, Sam Altman and Elon Musk, sacrificed babies in order to summon demons to enter the computer or something. Like Grok is basically a demon, is what she was saying, summoned by the sacrifice of babies. You know, I heard Alex Jones today talking about Epstein Island elites getting transfusions from babies, and now they look like football players with 20-year-old bodies when they're 80. I don't know if you've heard this today, but just anyway, recycled nonsense. But she did say that. She did say that AI is demons. But people will believe it. There was this problem that they fixed with ChatGPT where people believed that they had a girlfriend, or that they had an angel they were talking to through the computer. People were thinking the AI was sentient. They had to put guardrails up because people were so quick to believe it. I don't think that's a surprise to me. I think a lot of people, um, kind of fell for that. We're way past, what is it, the Turing test? I mean, sadly, people probably have had realer conversations with ChatGPT than with a lot of people in their lives. So it's filling a consumer need, but some people go really far with it. And I saw this viral video where someone was talking about how he just thought about something and he got an ad for it. And I'm not the only one who's talked about this before, but I've seen other videos showing up where people are making claims that they bought something with cash and they're asked to review it later, like by email. A lot of people. I mean, it could just be hype, but that is the future, I think. It's very convenient if you think about it. Plain Dakota says Michael Crichton wrote a book called Andromeda Strain, where a virus comes from outer space and invades people's minds and brains. Right. Well, the Pentagon was just tasking AI, or XAI, Musk's company, with doing the military's whatever, some sort of AI platform they're going to do. But anyway, I thought it was interesting that you have Musk associated with the military and AI, and this idea that he's like this influential person in cyberspace. And then you look at his role in outer space and how we're essentially looking at the commons. Cyberspace and outer space are two commons. And so he's presented as this example of a one person whose wealth gives him so much power that he can disrupt entire systems for the entire world. And so I think he's being presented to us from a world stage perspective as a symptom of this system that we're in, and a system that is not sustainable and will probably have to be eliminated, before the new age, before we go to Mars, for example. Like, we're not going to Mars as Americans. There's going to be some compromises. But I think that's part of his role here, his historic role, is exemplifying the thing that they want to get rid of. So he's been turned into a villain. And he also gets some credit for repopularizing the term mind virus. But it should be pointed out that even though he has done a lot to purge X of the woke mind virus, he at the same time has opened the doors to the woke mind virus on the right. So when he says woke mind virus, it makes it seem like there's only one. Well, no, there's woke left and woke right. And both of these are essentially mind viruses. So was it really a win? To me, not really, but the whole thing's rigged, and I don't take it. I'm not an ideologue. I'm not a voter. And all the people who fall into the political horseshoe fail to appreciate the significance of media fakery. They understate it, or they just don't know. Or if they know, they think it's some type of short-term force multiplier and influence operation, and they're possibly not considering the meaning of its persistence. That's why I'm emphasizing we have to consider these as simulated historic events to really get the full import of what a psyop is in terms of its long-term function. And that's ignored by people who think these things are real, or they don't put it into context. They're stuck in the 24-hour news cycle. You have to keep in mind that there's these two timelines. This is ongoing process. It's what we were calling West World Syndrome, where the synths are more or less trapped by their inability to follow along day by day by day, but are instead kind of stuck in the same day. So they don't have a continuity. And I don't think you can really see the world stage model accurately without some continuity as far as at least the last 60 or 70 years. You have to include in your assessment of the daily news the cumulative effect of many decades of fake stuff. Lord Laney says Pope Elon won't be having capitalism in his new Rome. Right? Okay, there's an example of a world stage character with associated predictive programming. He's in that Werner von Braun book, Mars, A Technical Tale, the first colonizer of Mars. And they do set up a papacy. And that's why he's been dubbed Pope Elon. But that just shows you how far back that particular character. And Musk is a Frankenstein's monster. If you look at the various components that make him up, and I've noticed that he adopts the mannerisms of the people that he's adopting into his personage. Like that Nick Ballstrom, when he talks about AI, when he talks about space, he does get kind of von Braun-y. And then there's that weird overlap between he and Iron Man with Robert Downey Jr. getting inspiration to play Tony Stark by studying Elon Musk. So he's really weaved between real and fake. But that's been an ongoing thing. Same thing with Trump. Many of these world stage characters seem to just exist in these two worlds where they just seamlessly walk, into everyone's homes and minds through mass entertainment. Like, it's just normal to have all these cameos and all these appearances. But no, when you look at the long term, it's like, well, these events are scheduled long in advance, sure, but also these people. The people that we see already existed in a script form, likely before they were born. Jamarian says, Tim, have you ever watched the movie Future World? This is a film where they show that politicians are slowly being replaced by robots. And at the end, full-on human synthetic biobots. Right. That seems like where they want to go. Do you remember Sophia? Sophia, the animatronic at the UN, telling us to take care of Mother Earth. She was basically a leftist, but she got phased out. They brought Greta out, and nobody cared about Sophia. I mean, Greta could be animatronic. We considered that. Like, how do we know she's not? But again, we're talking about this idea that this AI being is above corruption. And unlike human beings, it can't be bought. But the problem, again, is, and I alluded to this earlier, is that the AI will always have a world stage centric point of view. Its point of view assumes the reality of everything that came before, much of which we have revealed to be staged and simulated events. So the AI, no matter how intelligent, is just as confused as the normie because of this particular blind spot. It's a philosophical crisis. And with generative AI, it's only going deeper. If you haven't seen Mountainhead, it's about Elon Musk and generative AI leading to worldwide chaos. The movie came out right before LA had riots and fires, right before the No Kings protests, all by design. But if you haven't seen it, I would check it out because that's kind of what I think they're foreshadowing as a reason for censoring the internet. Like, now we got to control this stuff. Mind viruses are essentially a construct that I think, in a way, is the reason why we had the 2020 thing was to condition us for the censorship and lockdown of the internet for the same reasons. And the digital ID becomes something of a mask. And the control over mind viruses is worldview control. And a lot of it could be to prevent an outbreak of skepticism. That could be a big part of it. They really do have this thing on lockdown, whatever it is, this internalized Truman Show. But the AI is not going to be on your side, except as a tool, but it's not going to independently or in some way inadvertently, rather, reveal anything at all. It's effectively guardrailed, which is fascinating to think about. And the term guardrailing wasn't really in common usage until the AI thing, and it became a topic. And we had put out a book here, IPS Think Tank, is Guardrails, about how directions people are going with their thinking are intercepted and redirected back to mainstream lines of thinking. Jameer and May, would you say that mind viruses relate to mind parasites and archons? No, I'm just talking about ideas that are accepted uncritically by people who have been rendered susceptible to such ideas. And we're just talking about, in other words, low information beliefs, memes. But the idea that these things self-propagate, well, yeah, I've seen it myself. People who never pay attention to politics are telling me about Erica Kirk and how fake she is. So I'm like, yeah, that's a mind virus. We talk about memetics. But I have been thinking a lot about mind parasites. I'm listening to an audiobook now about mind parasites and how the modern world is infested on the astral level that intercepts with this one, with these soul extracting dark entities that are just apparently having a feeding frenzy right now, thanks to our 24-hour bread and circuses and everything that we output. That energy apparently is being harvested, according to H.P. Blavatsky's prediction about the future. But yes, mind viruses exist as just a way to explain gullibility and the target marketing of propaganda. Like, I wouldn't say it has anything to do with the astral mind parasites.